All right, if you are joining, just drop some comments in the comment section and let me know that you are joining. We are coming live on Academia Normad. Yay, I can see someone joining. Let me see who you are. I hope there is a way to see who's joining. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of the day you are and wherever you're joining from. I'm just doing live to talk about a few things. I've been posting a few things, and thank you so much for the comments and engagements. Barry, thank you for joining. Eddie, let's talk about Act Now first before we move to other things. So if you didn't know what went down, I don't know whether it was this week, but Act Now put out a media statement where Eddie Tanago, who works with Act Now, has just won a case against the PNG Forest Authority. Now, I don't want to go into the details of the case because I haven't read the case yet, so I don't want to misrepresent what happened. But my general understanding is that Eddie was taken to court for what was basically a anti-corruption awareness. Now, please have time to read the case. I haven't read a case yet, but my concern is much broader. And that is this pattern where public officials use state resources to defend themselves or to take, anti-corruption activists to court to avoid scrutiny. And this has been going on for a while, and it has to stop. I don't care if you have an issue against someone and you want to take the matter to court. Just don't use state resources. It's unfair on the rest of us. And it's the same that applies to, the government MPs or the government who go to the Supreme Court to defend themselves or to make an application or when there is an application made and the Department of Justice and Attorney General as the state legal representatives go to the Supreme Court and defend the position of the government of the day. Now, if the government of the day is pursuing a matter of national interest in the Supreme Court, then by all means, use public funding, use publicly funded lawyers from the Department of Justice and Attorney General and the related bodies. But you have no right to pursue a political case for your own benefit and then get the public to fund it through the public lawyers. Because how about the rest of us think you are wrong, right? But then because you have monopoly over state resources, that you could use state-funded lawyers to defend, let's say, the extension of the grace period. Papua New Guineans don't want to have another 18 months grace period when the vote against the Prime Minister is unsuccessful. There's really nothing good about that. So that's not something that is supported by Papua New Guineans. So if you're gonna, defend that position, find a private lawyer. All right, don't use the lawyers from the Department of Justice, Attorney General, public prosecutors. Don't use, the different arms of the Department of Justice and Attorney General because they are funded by public money, right? And they should be defending public interest. They shouldn't be defending a political interest of the government of the day, all right? Because every one of us have different opinion on the extension of the grace period, or rather insertion of the new grace period. So if you're going to go down that road, that's really not a national interest. Just, stop being stupid and trying to make the argument that that's a national interest. It's not. So find your own money and fund your own political interest. Don't use state lawyers, because state lawyers are funded by public, all right, by the working class. So that's just a broader pattern that I wanted to highlight, because the case with what happened with Act Now PNG, we have been doing some really great job. I mean, you can disagree with them on the method they use, but you are free to go out and collect your own data and challenge them, right? So you cannot use state resources to silence, anti-corruption fighters, or to defend your political position, all right? Not fair on the rest of us. There is someone who's saying, bro, Michael, Juristus from Smart Reading. Great to see your contributions. Look, guys, I'm really indebted to you guys' contributions and debates. Sometimes we make it sound like a banter, but that's the Papua New Guinean sense of humor. You cannot do that to, the white people. You cannot do that with other people. The Papua New Guinea sense of humor is very different. We do it, banter and stuff and exchange, but no personal, hard feeling against anyone who comes in and disagrees on Academia Normad. I'm all for difference of opinion, but I know the Papua New Guinea psyche. You push back, you get a lot of discussion going on, and that's what I do. I sometimes, try to be controversial on purpose, because that's the Papua New Guinean way of generating discussion, is that you push back, they come out, and, the discussion gets interesting. Melin Wamas is joining from Germany, which is interesting. We have viewers from Germany. So, hope you are enjoying Dutchland. There are a few people I know. Jerome, Etep Noor. Yeah, Samantha. Yeah, there's a look. Thank you for joining, Emmanuel. Eileen is joining from Canberra. Like Barry Namongo. Please just drop in the comment section if there is anything you want us to talk about. I'll eventually get into the politics that's happening at the moment. Maybe start with the articles I've been posting and go backwards, if that makes sense. Earlier today, I talked about Makera Marauta. Different prime ministers and political leaders in Papua New Guinea have made a mark in the political landscape of Papua New Guinea on different issues, right? And Makera Marauta made his mark by bringing efficiency to the government in ways that no one has ever done. No disrespect to Michael Somare, is the founding father, one of the founding fathers. Pius Winty, Julius Chan, Rabin Amaliu, Bill Skate, but Makera Marauta is probably, in my view, the best Prime Minister Papua New Guinea has ever had. And in the article that I posted today, I said, I kind of gave the implication that he was elected almost accidentally. I don't think the members of parliament would have voted Makera Marauta if they knew what was in his mind. The guy was insanely smart. And I think that's what happens when you get technocrats, like proper bona fide technocrats, who know their craft into power, and that these technocrats don't have, well, they do have political affiliations, but national interest is the first priority. So it's very rare to have people like that, well educated, knows the economics and the politics of the day and the systems of the world, and are willing to bring reform. And what Michael Kabuni did in 2 years, from 1999, so, half of 1999, or most of, most of 1999 was the prime minister of the time was Bill Gates. So Michael Kabuni didn't sell all of 1999. So you cannot count 1999, but you can count 2000, 2001, and up until June, July of 2002. So in less than 2-3 years, the guy has put in place reforms that we see today. Just 2 to 3 years. And that's my problem with those who are wanting the current prime ministers to serve for another, 3 more years that's left. And that's because Michael Kabuni proved to us that you can get massive reforms done, right, in 1 year. And he also showed to us, and there's this, misleading narrative online that prime minister cannot do much because his hands are tied down and he's managing a coalition. That's bullshit. That's true for parliamentary politics in Australia. That's true for parliamentary politics in New Zealand. That's true for parliamentary politics in the United Kingdom. That's not true for parliamentary politics in Papua New Guinea. Parliamentary politics in Papua New Guinea is determined by the prime minister. There's no ifs, buts whatsoever. If Marape really wanted to do reform, he would have done it. Any other excuse apart from that is nonsense. All right? Any other excuse of, I'm managing coalition and different interests, complete nonsense. All right? Michael Kabuni has done it. And what are the reforms that would have made the biggest difference in Papua New Guinea? And I'll tell you what the reforms are. If you abolish DSIP and PSIP funding, at the moment, the formula that is used to calculate DSIP and PSIP funding, if you go by that, is that we have approximately 4 billion that is given to 89 members of parliament. And that's spent mostly at their discretion without acquittals and without evaluation of the quality of the projects that they claim to implement. We don't know whether they are implementing these projects or not. Just because you submit an acquittal doesn't necessarily mean you deliver a project. There's a difference between an acquittal, which can be manipulated, all right, and the actual project on the ground. So service delivery, when you look at the data since 2014, like every indicator we in Papua New Guinea, on every services you can think of, no kidding, has been regressing, has been going down. Every indicator. Now, you are spending 4 billion, all right? Members of parliament are spending 4 billion, and every development indicator is regressing. That should tell you that DSIP and PSIP funding is not having any impact in Papua New Guinea. It's a waste of public servants' taxes. It's a waste of revenues we're getting out of our natural resources. It's a waste of a limited resource that we actually need to go into critical areas like health and education. So I'll tell you one indicator of a prime minister that actually has the national interest at heart If you have a prime minister that is willing to abolish DSIP and PSIP funding, 4 billion, and put 1 billion annually into police, all right? Because that's the research. The research has been done on how much it needs to start improving the condition of the police and law and order in Papua New Guinea. 1 billion is the minimum. So you spend 1 billion every year and sustain that for at least 10 years. You will improve the capacity, capabilities that is needed within the police and the human resource that's needed within the police department to actually solve law and order. Now, we are a country that does not have, billions and billions of kina. But we are a country that is wasting whatever limited resources we have. So if you save that 4 billion and put 1 billion into law and order every year, you will eventually bring the presence of the state into Taripori, Anga, Wabeg, and every other, region that we have in problems with law and order. The reason why you have breakdown in law and order is because the people cannot see the state. You need a policeman to say that is wrong. You need a policeman to do the arrest. You need a policeman and police prosecutor to do that first initial phase of arrest and gathering of evidence, right? So that's not happening. That's what I'm saying. If you really want one criteria in Papua New Guinea to measure whether the prime minister is genuine or not, it's abolishing DSIP and PSIP funding and freeing up 4 billion almost automatically. Now, if no prime minister is willing to do that, then I would argue that that prime minister does not have the national interest at all. And I don't care whether that prime minister is Alan Bed, Brian Kramer, Kerenga Kwa, or Tom Lino. All right? They have to abolish DSIP and PSP funding because that would release 4 billion. All right? And that 4 billion would go into law and order. Now, if you brought down the problems around law and order, there was a survey of 100 CEOs in Papua New Guinea, chief executive officers in Papua New Guinea, or chief executive officers whose companies are operating in Papua New Guinea. You know what their main concerns were? The first one was shortage of foreign currency. All right. The second one was law and order. The third one was utilities. So that's power and electricity. So electricity and water. So the business community is telling us that our problem in Papua New Guinea is shortage of foreign currency, electricity and water and law and order. If you start by fixing law and order, the business feels safe to expand into Taripori, expand into Anga, expand into Vabe, expand into Chimbu, expand into, Sepik, wherever the hotspots are. Because businesses are beginning to pull out of these places, not only this, but even within, generally across Papua New Guinea. Morobe Fletcher is living in Papua New Guinea. They built the Parliament House, all right? Iconic building built by a company that has been operating in Papua New Guinea for 70 years, and it's living in Papua New Guinea. So they are living because of all of these things. And, the Prime Minister talks about, I will create jobs, or I will, I don't know what the headlines are because the headlines keeps changing. The government cannot create jobs, all right? If you keep recruiting people into public service, they are not generating money, all right? They're going in to maintain the bureaucracy, which means they are paid for by taxpayers. But if you expand the business, then you almost have an unlimited employment capacity. Because so long as companies need work done, they'll be recruiting people. So the wise thing to do, therefore, is to focus on creating an environment where businesses feel safe to invest, all right? And as they invest, they will create the employment opportunity, which will then drag people that are out on the street into a tax-paying job, all right? So our government doesn't seem to see the relationship between improving law and order, business investment, and employment, and then the cycle goes on, and eventually people are employed so they are not on the street, or they are not desperate to engage in criminal activity. And then you have this cycle where it's kind of a loop, it's feeding itself and bringing down the problems that we have, especially related to law and order. So our leaders don't seem to have this vision or this kind of strategic thinking. They are living for the present, going down and buying a tank, and then having people dancing. Some even carry them, and they think that service delivery. But if you can stop, misusing these fundings in DSR and PSR funding, fix law and order, you will improve it. Now you got 4 billion saved. 1 billion goes into law and order every year. Another billion goes into fixing utilities, so water and power across the country. That's the third biggest impediment that the business community identified in 2025. So again, you improve law and order, you improve water and electricity, you are creating a conducive environment, all right, for investment. Now, Forex is a bigger problem. It just basically means we need more exports, right? So that people outside are buying our goods in US dollars, so that we have enough US dollars, so that you could then use that US dollars to import, all right? At the moment, companies don't have enough US dollars because we are not exporting enough. But then again, exports are done by businesses, not government. So spending 4 billion on government that doesn't create an export-oriented business that would bring in US dollars to fix the Forex problem is really a self-defeating strategy. So look, that would be my first, criteria to see if the government is serious about this country, is to save up 4 billion and reinvest in sectors that actually make sense. All right, yeah, so I said I would respond to a few questions. Lamek is making the point that Department of Implementation and Rural Development, they're supposed to monitor the SIP PSP funding, but they don't have the funds to acquit and do appraisals. Good point. If you have a question or if you have anything that you want us to talk about, just throw it in there and we'll talk about it. So there, Greg Soka is asking about the implication of the amendment to Section 145 of the Constitution, and is asking about balancing stability as well as checks and balances. All right, so for those of you who don't know what Greg is referring to, Section 145 of the Constitution provides the procedures for a vote of no confidence. It actually provides the constitutional grounds for vote of no confidence, and then provides the broader guidelines. And then the rest of the details is then left to the parliamentary standing orders to detail how the actual process will take place. So for those of you who are not interested in politics and don't follow politics, is after the election of the prime minister, whether that's following a national election or a vote of no confidence, then is protected from vote of no confidence for 18 months. And that 18 months, we call it a grace period. So if the prime minister is elected following a general election, you cannot remove the prime minister for the next 18 months. If you, after the 18 months is over, you can move a vote of no confidence. Now, if you successfully move a vote of no confidence and replace the prime minister with another one, all right, then a new grace period is activated. So that vote that the prime minister came to power through a vote of no confidence as another 18 months. Here's the caveat. The 18 months only applies, 18 months grace period, to a prime minister that is voted either through a vote of no confidence or following a general election and is elected. The 18 months never applied to a prime minister who defeated a vote of no confidence. All right? So that's been the kind of law up until, I think it was 13 March, can't remember the exact date, where the parliament amended the constitution. And then now they've inserted a new 18 months. This new 18 months is such that if James Marape defeats a vote of no confidence, the current one that's happening on the 15th of April, then a new 18 months is activated and is protected. So the next 18 months after he defeats a vote of no confidence is protected by the grace period. So you cannot move any more vote of no confidence after April 15 if James Marape successfully defeats the vote of no confidence. So Greg's question is, does this mean, is this a good thing? Because now we don't have to frequently change the prime minister. All right, so it's an argument for stability. Now, the problem with that is that if you are protected by law, and if you are a really good prime minister, let's say if you are Mekere Morata incarnate, then that is really good for the country, right? We have a really good prime minister, put in all the anti-corruption reforms that we want, making sure that there is real independence between the investigative arms of the police and, integrity agencies in general. If there are reforms like, abolishing the DSAP and PSAP funding, because if you're protected by the grace period, you cannot be removed through a vote of no confidence. So you really have no fear abolishing the DSAP and PSAP funding. So that's the good thing. But that you can only have that if you, just 1 minute. Need to put my heater on. Yeah, you can only have that benefit of political stability if you have a good prime minister. But if you have a really bad prime minister that is amending the constitution at will, that is increasingly plundering the country's resources through wastage of DSAP and PSAP funding, that is accumulating debt for the country, then you have a prime minister that is basically protected from accountability, because you cannot remove the prime minister through a vote of no confidence. So that's the risk. Stability with checks and balance. Stability is good if you have a good prime minister. But stability is really, really bad if you have a bad prime minister, right? So therefore, look, I don't agree with the additional 18 months. If you read Julius Chen's book, Julius Chen never really agreed for any type of grace period. It's amazing. He's one of the founding fathers. And he thought that 6 months, the original grace period, you won't believe this, the original grace period was 6 months. The founding fathers, in their wisdom, when they thought about checks and balances, they said, you have 6 months protection under the Constitution to prove your bloody worth. If you cannot, then after 6 months, we'll remove you. Now, we've increased that to 18 months, and not only that, we've added another 18 months, right? So, I mean, Alan Betzer is challenging this decision in the Supreme Court, and I hope, that goes through. And I really hope it's ruled unconstitutional, because we are going against almost everything that the founding fathers stood for as far as accountability is concerned. Now, that leads me to another point that I made in one of the posts. And Rainbow Paita, and look, I have no personal vendetta against Rainbow Paita, but seriously, if you are stupid, I'm not a fan of stupidity. Rainbow Paita comes out and he says we need stability, so therefore the government, the current government should be supported and they should remain in power. I'll give you a small history, a brief history. From 1977, right, when the first post-independence election was conducted, up until 2002, all the prime ministers that served during this period, no one served more than 4 years. The longest period was Rabin Amali, who served 4 years and was replaced in a vote of no confidence. The average time for founding fathers who became prime ministers between 1977 and 2002, guess what? It was 3 years. They never complained. They never tried to, amend the constitution and extend the grace periods and stuff like nonsense like this. They understood that the prime minister's seat is no tribal chieftaincy position to you. So they were okay with it. And it was very unstable, average serving an average of 3 years from 1977 to 2002. Michael Somare never complained. All right? Rabin Amalu never complained. Julius Chen never complained. Pius Wenti, 1993, 1994, engaged in clever political maneuvering. That if you want me to talk about it, just leave it in the comment sections. But yeah, basically they served an average of 3 years. So you really have no point arguing about stability and that you don't have enough time to implement all the changes, because the current prime minister has been in that position for a combined 6 years. That's double the average that the founding fathers were serving between 1977 and 2002. Now, after 2002, we had a law called Organic Law on the Integrity of Political Parties and Candidates. One of the impact of that law was that it prevented members of parliament from switching from one side to another. And that law was responsible for Michael Somare completing the 2002 to 2007 prime ministership, all right, the tenure. He was re-elected, and his government was elected, and then he continued from 2007 to 2011. In between, around 2010, this organic law on the integrity of political parties and candidates was ruled unconstitutional, and then he was removed from power. So Michael Somare became the first prime minister to complete 5-year term in parliament. He became the first prime minister to serve more than 5 years subsequently. Now, here's the thing though. If you are arguing for stability and longer periods of time, as in prime minister's tenure in parliament, then you better be doing a good job, right? So what did Michael Somare do with his extended tenure in parliament as the prime minister? You won't believe this, all right? I don't know what the national debt of Papua New Guinea is at the moment, but Michael Somare brought the national debt down to zero. I mean, a few points above zero. I was a student at the University of Papua New Guinea, 2010. 11. I was sitting in a lecture room. Those who have attended UPNG would know the main lecture theater. And I can remember to this day, I saw a graph that was presented where the debt level went from, you cannot see my hand because it's all the way up there, all the way down to zero, close to zero. That's the result of political stability, right? And a political stability under a wise leader. Now, the political stability that Rainbow Party is arguing for, for James Marape, is that James Marape hasn't given us any indication that he is putting in place reforms that will save this country. If James Marape abolished DSIP and PSP funding tomorrow, I promise to God I'll be the first person to come out and argue for James Marape to remain as Prime Minister. Because that's the Mekere Morota kind of level of reform, real reform. So all this nonsense about, increasing national gross domestic product to 200 billion, nonsense. What we need is proper reform. So if you want to argue for James Marape to remain as the Prime Minister, then he has to start by abolishing the DSIP PSP funding, free up 4 billion, and put it into critical areas. Enslem is asking which court ruled the OLIPEC unconstitutional. It was the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled the organic law and the integrity of political parties and candidates unconstitutional. Edmund is joining from Japan. Thank you. So interesting. We've got people joining from Germany, Japan, Canberra, and there are a few others joining. I'm not really sure where you're joining from, but thank you for joining. Look, if you have questions, just drop it in the comment section, and I will just have time to run through. If you don't, I'm going to default back to the articles I've been posting and try to bring some clarity around what I mean by the different articles. Let's talk about Facebook shut down a little bit whilst waiting for you guys to throw in your comments. Lillian, will come to your point on changes in ministry portfolios. So I had a really big problem with the shutdown of Facebook, and most of you have seen my reaction to that. Now, here's the thing. I don't necessarily use Facebook on a daily basis. I come on when there's an issue to talk about, and then, be consistent, because there are, issues are evolving, so my discussion evolves with that. But when there is nothing that is of interest to me happening, I just stay out of Facebook, and I can stay out of Facebook for months. So I can go 2 months without, engaging in any discussion on Facebook. So my problem wasn't about Facebook or the difficulty of accessing Facebook. That wasn't my problem with the shutdown of Facebook. My problem was I could see a trend. I could pick up a trend that was very troubling. Now, for those of you who are not interested in history, this might not bother you as much as students of history, because we read what happened in the Soviet Union. We read what happened in communist regimes. It's a very, very slippery slope. If you start shutting down freedom of speech and expression, there is really no stop to it. And you won't believe this, but when you begin to shut down freedom of speech, you quickly then move into authoritarian type of leadership. And then you start to repress rights and freedoms to the point you start killing your own people. History is full of cases where suppression of freedom eventually led to dead bodies. Now, you are from Papua New Guinea. We've never actually had this kind of scenario, so you would go, that's an extreme. Look, it may be an extreme, but there are cases around the world. The world is full of case studies where when people tampered with freedom of speech and expression, it led down a bloody pathway. Now, Facebook in Papua New Guinea, there are about 1.4 million to 1.6 million Papua New Guineans currently using Facebook. One of my PhD friends is doing his PhD on politics and technology. So I just asked him to pull out the algorithms for Facebook. And I asked him to look at the PNG data and how many people are using Facebook. And he confirmed to me that it's between 1.4 million to 1.6 million Papua New Guineans using Facebook. Now, think about it for a minute. The parliament is so weak, the opposition, that they cannot stop the government from pushing through very unpopular legislations, like the amendment to the constitution to add another 18 months grace period. So the parliament is not able to hold the executive arm of the government accountable. You can go to the Supreme Court, but ordinary citizens like you and me, we don't have what in law called standing. So if the constitution is amended, you na me ba no nagwala Supreme Court na toki Supreme Court, hey, we think this is unconstitutional. Can you interpret this? We cannot do that. All right? We cannot do that because we don't have standing. Only the members of parliament and a few bodies, institutions like the Ombudsman Commission can do that. We cannot. All right? So we don't have real power. Our opposition does not have real power. Their numbers are depleted. Now, you may want to go and institute a claim of, alleged bribery with the police. How many Papua New Guineans actually go to the police? We don't. So what Facebook is doing is that it's giving voice to 1.4 million to 1.6 million Papua New Guineans. All right? For the very first time in Papua New Guinea's history, accountability is decentralized to the point where the 92 of you who are watching me right now have equal power to the Chief Justice. All right? Now you can get your voice out to the public in ways that was never possible. You have equal power like Alan Bed. Alan Bed can use Facebook, you can use Facebook. Brian Kramer can use Facebook, you can use Facebook. James Marape can use Facebook, you can use Facebook for the very first time, all right? So that's the utility of Facebook. So I really have strong views about regulating Facebook. Now, that does not mean for, stupid people who use Facebook to, sorry, I need to charge my phone, so I keep talking. Yes. So that does not mean I'm in support of people who are abusing Facebook, people who are sharing, private matters, like romantic, acts. Like this does not have to be on Facebook. And whoever says this stupid, and the government should use cyber law, cyber crime law, to crack down on specific accounts. So, look, Facebook is not 100%, accountability mechanism the way I put it, but Facebook is doing a lot of good. And if you have a problem with accounts that are abusing Facebook, then use state resources, right, to make a very strategic intervention and only deal with people who are abusing Facebook. The rest of us are not abusing Facebook. At least I don't think I'm abusing Facebook. Almost 100 people joining this live. All right, I'm not abusing Facebook. So it's a really bad excuse to claim abuse of Facebook and shut down freedom of speech and expression. So I'm not a fan of that. All right, there are a few. I think someone is joining from New Zealand as well. Kia ora to you, Anesio. So there was a question posted somewhere. Oh, someone is asking about Pius Winty. Like, guys, I don't want to turn this into a history class, but okay, briefly on Pius Winty. In 1993, Pius Winty's 18 months, I don't know whether it was 18 months or at the time 12 months, but the grace period was coming to an end. Now, like I said earlier, for those of you who joined late, I briefly talked about the grace period and how it evolved. So Pius Winty in 1993, when the grace period was coming to an end, resigned. And then the next day got elected. And then when you get elected, whether it's through a vote of no confidence or whether it's after a general election, or if it's, there's a vacancy, like the case with Peter O'Neill in 2019 when he resigned and there was a vacancy, and the case with Pius Winty in 1993 when he resigned and there was a vacancy. Anyone who is elected after that, whether it's a new candidate or the same guy who just resigned, who is still eligible to, be nominated. And if he's nominated and if he's elected, then a new grace period strikes in. So what Pius Winty did was, as his grace period was coming to an end, he resigned, and then he got elected the next day. And then, like, logically, there was a new grace period, so he couldn't be removed through a vote of no confidence again, at least for the next 18 months. And then the opposition took it to the Supreme Court. Now, this is the interesting thing, which actually Marape can do if he's smart. The only problem with that Pius Winty case was that Pius Winty resigned outside of the parliament. He announced his resignation on NBC. It wasn't on the floor of parliament. You have to announce your resignation on the floor of parliament. And then the next parliament sitting day, which is the next day, you then proceed to elect a new prime minister. Right? That's in the case of a vacancy. In the case of a vote of no confidence, you adjourn parliament for 1 week and then come back and elect, put a new candidate to challenge the incumbent prime minister. So Pius Winty's case was pretty much like Peter O'Neill's case in 2019, except that Peter O'Neill didn't recontest. Pius Winty did. And it was all legal and a very, very smart political maneuver. The only problem was that Pius Winty resigned outside of parliament. And even though members of parliament knew that he resigned, the correct procedure would have been for Pius Winty to resign on the floor of parliament and announce to the floor of parliament that he has resigned. And then there was no law stopping him from doing what he did, which was get renominated and then get re-elected as prime minister and then have another 18 months grace period. So smart move, except a very minor detail, he resigned outside of parliament. So that's in response to Elton Garo's question. Let's take a few more questions and then close it off. Man, we add up to 100 people, so that's really good. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through looking for questions. There are a lot of questions. Someone is watching from Kuwait. So, hey, shout out to these people, because we've got people watching possibly from New Zealand, someone from Japan, someone from Kuwait, Australia, Germany. Impressive. By the way, thanks for following all this time. Okay, there is a question from Lillian Gasso. Any thoughts on the changes of minister portfolio? Yeah, look, minister portfolios. I don't think ministries in Papua New Guinea are allocated based on merit, like the best person is given the best job. Sorry, the best person is given the most relevant job. Because we've seen people given portfolios that really doesn't make sense. And I don't want to go into the specifics, but you all know members of parliament who are given portfolios that really doesn't add up. Because, look, if you have a grade 6 dropout appointed as the foreign affairs minister, and I'm not saying the current foreign affairs minister is a grade 6 dropout, I'm just using, a hypothetical case, and you go to Australia and you are negotiating a security deal, right, with an Australian counterpart who has graduated in one of the top universities in Australia. Like, where do you think this deal will be skewed towards? It's without question going to be skewed towards the country that you are negotiating with. There's no question about it. So my problem with ministry allocations is that it's given to the political party with the highest number and that can support the prime minister, or it's given to the most prominent social media, star. It's given to someone who has provided resources to support the government formation. This kind of factors come into play. So we are not giving our ministerial portfolios to the best people in parliament. And that's a problem because the ministers are the immediate supervisors of the government departments that they are supposed to lead. So you have, if you have bus drivers heading the Ministry of Defense, and that minister is the immediate supervisor to the whole Department of Defense. That does not make sense. You're basically not doing the country any favor. So ministry portfolio, I know it's a political game, but there are people who are capable and they should be appointed ministers. And I don't care, whether it's government or opposition, that's not my position. That's, a political game. But just give the ministries to people who are capable. You are dealing with national interest. I'm not really, committee lo koko garden do you lo pakside lo mambo blow you lo place whereby people make lily committee and decide whether by digging barret go on top or come down. So this is a national office, and then there should be people who are capable and running this. Bougainville Independence has joined. Thank you very much. There was this AI-generated video that was circulating online. And look, like I said, Facebook and AI are good tools, but there are some stupid people, abusing it. It's not a reason to shut down either AI or Facebook. Government has demonstrated they have capacity when they shut down Facebook, right? And look, there was a few years back where NITA deactivated any mobile phone number that was not registered, right? So you have to be registered to be using Facebook. That's the conclusion, because you need data, right? And to use data, you will eventually need a SIM card. To get a SIM card, you will have to register, which means NITA should have the data of every registered phone number that is using data to go online and say AI manipulated materials. So what you can then do is just go to NITA, all right? Monitor the account that is breaking the law, right? Not everyone else. This is basically breaking the law, all right? Go through the judges, get a warrant if warrant is needed, and monitor that specific account, arrest that particular individual, and go and put him in jail. All right? You have no right trying to shut down Facebook because some stupid is sharing some AI manipulated material. I'm not saying they're going to shut down Facebook, but that was kind of the logic they used to shut down Facebook. So I'm not for that. Yeah, stupidity should be regulated, not freedom of speech. All right, guys, I'm coming to an end now. Look, we'll probably do this again another time and talk about a few things. Yeah, so I think we've been live streaming for about 30 minutes or more. So I'm going to stop here. And if you joined late, I'm just going to save this stream so you can watch from the beginning. We talked about a couple of things. I responded to a few questions. Wall Street, one of my favorite guys, was contributing to this page. So because you've been very engaging on the platform, I'll probably answer your question as the last one. He's asking, what do you think of the opposition nominee Patas? Is it a ploy by the Marape regime to defeat VONC? No, mate. I don't think it's a ploy by Marape, like a Trojanos. So you go over to the opposition, destroy the opposition. And it's the same thing. I don't think Paita was a Trojanos. These are individuals who have seen an opportunity to get a prime minister's position. It's a power game. They want to be in a position of power. Trust me, every member of parliament wants to be the prime minister. Some have good intentions and some don't. But that's the ultimate goal. That's why you have, as someone asked about political parties, why do you have 44 political parties in Papua New Guinea at the moment? Because every one of those individuals who are leading these parties have a dream of becoming a prime minister. If they didn't want to become the prime minister, they would have joined the existing political parties and the number of political parties would have dropped. So one-man political party, like, why is Brian Kramer and Gary Jufa still one-man parties when they almost believe the same thing? Doesn't make sense. You have two-man party, you have one-man party. Doesn't make sense. And when you look at what they stand for, right, their policies, it's almost same. They are almost all patriotic. They almost all anti-corruption, So why don't you just drop some political parties and join one and have more numbers to form the government or, to be a voice on the floor of parliament? So the question about political parties is exactly that. I think it's just power-hungry people wanting to have their own political party, so they are a leader of the political party and have a chance of becoming a prime minister. So, yeah, to Wall Street's question, I don't think it's a Trojan horse situation. I think it's a opportunistic situation where people have seen an opportunity and they want to make use of it. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, if there is demand for us to have some more of this discussion, yeah, from time to time I'll be dropping in to just maybe 30 minutes chat. So thank you again. You guys take care. Use Facebook responsibly so you don't give the opposing team, and by opposing team I mean those who don't like Facebook and want to shut it down, give them an opportunity to use as an excuse to shut the Facebook platform down, because it's the best accountability mechanism that I've seen so far. Take care.